This is Derek.
And this is Miles.
And this is In Session. In Session is a DLASC podcast meant to strengthen the BRCC community. In our first few episodes, we'll be here trying to bridge the gap between faculty and students. On today's episode, we're joined by Dr. Sahara Haney, and we'll be discussing how first-year students can make the most out of their semester. So, Dr. Haney, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course. My name is Dr. Sahara Haney, and I currently serve as the Director of Digital Learning and Academic Support here at BRCC.
Okay, so how did you get into this position? What was your career path like?
I've always been interested in technology and its impact on education. So prior to coming to BRCC, I worked in K-12 for EBR school system. I served as everything in education, a classroom teacher where I taught middle school English as well as 4th and 5th grade gifted English and social studies. After I think about 5.5 years, 6 years, I transitioned from there and I was promoted to a district level position where I supported teachers basically with how to implement tech in their classrooms. I worked for a great team in EBR school system called the Ed Tech team. And so we were comprised of former educators still in the same school district, but we were supporting teachers on how to implement or integrate, I should say, tech in their classrooms. I served in that role for about 2.5, 3 years. I was promoted within the same team as coordinator of Ed Tech, and then within 1.5 years, I was promoted to director of Ed Tech. So I ended my tenure in EBR schools as director of Ed Tech. My team did a lot of great things. We did a lot of created a lot of initiatives for all of our teachers and our faculty and our students in EBR school system. I'm a very proactive person. So when I feel like my job is done, it's time for me to kind of move on to the next job. Or when I identify a, like a need somewhere, I like to kind of transition somewhere else. And so while I was serving in my role in EBR, in 2021, I started serving as an adjunct professor here at BRCC in the CDYC program. And I saw a large need, a greatly large need for student support in technology, as well as faculty support in technology. A lot of my colleagues did not know how to create an engaging Canvas course for their students. It was very bare bones. Oftentimes people think because you can teach amazingly in person, you can also do the same thing online, and that is two different kind of pedagogical approaches. So I saw that need. When I saw the job pop up, I went ahead and applied. After 3 long, strenuous interviews, and about 6 months, I was offered the job, and it was a hard decision because I was with EBR for 13 years. That's all I knew from undergrad. I graduated December 2011. January 2012, I started in EBR schools, left there this year, 2024 in February. So it was really, really hard and it was emotional, but I felt like it was time to, grow and learn more and bring my talents to BRCC. So that was the primary reason why I left EBR, and that's kind of my philosophy around education currently.
So you say that with your career path, what was your experience in college, like specifically your first semester, and did you have this level of work ethic when you first started out in college?
No. So in high school, I went to Baton Rouge High, go Bulldogs, whoop, and we were a magnet program, and it still is a magnet program. It's the #1 high school in Baton Rouge, public high school, I should say, and it's basically a college prep program. And so at Baton Rouge High, I was always in magnet programs. I went to a traditional elementary school, went to McKinley Middle Magnet for middle school, went to Baton Rouge High for high school, And so eventually, over my tenure as a student in K-12, by the time I got to 10th grade, I realized, I don't gotta be as smart as I need to be just to get grades. I can just kind of, coast, which is not the best thing to do. So no one take my advice. But it is kind of demoralizing a little bit when you're at a large high school. We had about 380 students in my graduating class, and everyone's brilliant. Everyone's like a genius at Baton Rouge High. So eventually you're like, I can just do, the bare minimum just to keep my GPA where it needs to be to survive at Baton Rouge High. Get, scholarships or get into the college I want to, whatever. So I always had the work ethic, but I didn't necessarily portray it until I got out of high school. Once I got to college, that's money that's being spent. I was a product of a single parent household, so my mom was not paying for my schooling. It was financial aid. So I didn't want to take these loans out and waste my time or waste anybody else's time. So when I got to college, that's when it kind of clicked, like, okay, Sahara, you need to, focus, use your time wisely, don't waste your time, have fun, but don't waste your time. So yeah, it's always been in me, but it really didn't show until college.
When talking about your high school, would you say that being in Baton Rouge High prepared you for how you would go to college?
100%. It is a college prep program, so we had homework all day, every day, and the tests were like college level tests. We were able to be dual enrolled if we wanted to, etc. But definitely my mom, I would say, probably prepared me the most because she always, education was top 10, period. I was gonna go to somebody's school when I graduated, right? She didn't care what I went in as long as I just continued my education. So I would say it was definitely her as well as Baton Rouge High preparing me to be the woman that I am currently.
So that first semester of college, what was your biggest takeaway from it? Was there anything you struggled with, or what did you get out of it?
So honestly, academically, I was fine. I think probably straight A's my first semester in college. I went to Southeastern for undergrad, so it wasn't a big transition from Baton Rouge High to undergrad. It was pretty easy. Academically, I was fine. Socially, I lost my two best friends within 4 months. They tell you to never room with your best friend. Take that advice. Everybody, don't do it. Please don't do it. Because within 4 months, we were no longer, and then, of course, we were roommates like a dorm, so it's different if you're like an apartment because you have separate rooms. But I will say that was probably the hardest part, but going through that transition of having this core friend group to now, you're by yourself. You have to now put yourself out there, meet new people, join clubs, join whatever else. To kind of put yourself out there. And I'm a large introvert. I'm shy by nature, it surprises a lot of people, honestly. And I'm a huge introvert. So having to now go from having this kind of security blanket of best friends to now kind of by myself, it was a task, but it was definitely rewarding because I don't think I would be where I would be if I hadn't gone through that my first year in college. So yeah, academically, I was good. I never had issues with academics. It was really just the social side of college, because that is a big component that I think a lot of people forget. Yeah, it's about academics, but socially, it could be trying for somebody that's coming from a small bucket and they're being thrown into this large ocean. It's kind of hard. So yeah, so I think people forget sometimes to also nurture that side of the student, not just the academic side.
Yeah, there's definitely a transition that people don't talk about much as far as higher education comes.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about the change in the courses and the coursework,
homework,
and,
tests.
Right.
That's here, but it's a 360 approach, right?
Yeah.
Even in K-12, we always preach, teach the whole child, teach the whole child, teach the whole child. It's not just academics. It's not just learning 2 + 2 = 4. It's is Bobby doing great in school? Is he socially iterating correctly? Is he, does he have fine motor skills? Whatever the case may be. So all of that, I think, needs to be thought about, even in higher ed. So
when talking, you talked about how it was your academics was fine, but the social issue was a struggle for you. Were there any events that you thought helped you get more social, or was there anything that the school itself kind of integrated into?
Yeah, definitely. I think Southeastern is number one. I tell everybody with Southeastern. Off top, the textbook rental program is the bee's knees, so you don't worry about paying for textbooks. Textbooks is a large cost of undergrad students' tuition. But outside of that, clearly, we had orientation. They had programs all of the time. My second year, I became an RA, so that kind of pushed me out there a little bit more to have to be, hey, my name is Sahara, and I'm not that bubbly person at all, but I had to be like that to make sure my residents were, they were surviving.
Don't know what an RA is.
Thank you. Yeah, so an RA is a resident advisor. So basically in a dormitory, let's say you have 4 floors, each floor has not a chaperone, because I was not nobody's mama, I was just 19. But basically, a college student level chaperone where we got paid through tuition. So we had free tuition as well as free room and board, and I think a free meal plan if I'm not mistaken, to basically do this job of, we had to be on call, I think 1 week every month, where we had a little old school Nokia phone. So if somebody had any issues, they would call that phone. We'll have to, connect them with the police on campus or whatever. And then we would hold, I think, one event required every single month, or might have been every semester or quarterly, where we had to have some kind of initiative for our floor. So like you can just do something that promoted sex education, right? Because that's a big thing in college, or even something that promoted study skills or just preparing for final exams. So it was a really great way to put me out there, and it connected me with a lot of people that I ended up getting involved in other organizations, my sorority, the Sorority Incorporated, meeting people in that organization, and just putting myself out there. Because like I said, I'm not hi, my name is Sahara kind of bubbly person. I'm a very introverted, laid back, to myself person, sometimes too much, but it really helped me, I guess, spread my wings and fly.
So a lot of what we've been talking about is more geared towards like bigger four-year universities. And since we're at BRCC, how do you see that transition, that kind of struggle transition, either academically or socially? How do you see that with the students like on our campus?
So I will say, one thing I've noticed that I think sometimes our students are not 100% prepared for the transition between high school and then college. And then even then, if they're not coming from high school, we have, I think the average age here is 26, right? So they're non-traditional students. They have been in school in about, 8 years? Right. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? No. Sometimes life happens. Or you may not be able to go to school at that time. You need to work, and you don't want to have student loans. So you want to work, get money, and pay your own way through school. And that's perfectly fine. So I think ensuring that we have supports in place, for those people maneuvering through our system. I think sometimes we forget about all kinds of students, not just the traditional high school, graduated 2023, now I'm a freshman 2024. That's not that realistic, right? Not in today's climate anyway. And especially at a junior college or a community college, normally you do have that student that is maybe 45, have three kids, work 2 jobs throughout the entire day, and they're taking their classes online. So I think ensuring that we have supports, which BRCC is actively working towards placing those things in place. One of my big missions or goals for the center and for this department specifically is to provide support for those non-traditional students, so that every student, regardless of how old they are, their major, their course load, whatever, they have some kind of support to just lean on outside of having to physically come to the campus. Yeah,
that's something we see in the center every day. I mean, I can't tell you how many sessions that we take that are just like, I don't know how to work Canvas. I don't know how to upload.
Something as simple as, to me, it's like, that's so natural. Like, how do you know how to work Canvas? But to them, they have not been in school in 15 years. Right. What's the Canvas? Is it like a painting canvas? Like, they don't realize that's their learning system that they have to use. Right. So, like, even have something broken down to them.
Literally, one of the first things that one of those most repeated things I hear from clients is, I haven't been in school since so and such time. I need help with getting to learn this technology, and of course, with us moving away from books and stuff like that, and things moving online, it's only becoming harder. Yeah. So I think that bridging that gap, us trying to help bridge that gap, is helping them along.
And then not even bridging the gap, but helping the student realize if they're an online learner or not. Because just because the class is online does not mean you should take the class online, right? It takes a special person to take an online class. I got my master's online. I like that because, again, I'm an introvert. I don't want to have to be in a classroom listening to somebody talk to me. Like, no, give me my work, let me do my job, and call it a day. But other people need that professor lecturing to them, giving them all that support in person. So I think also helping a student realize, okay, you know what, I do like to sleep late, but I need to get my butt up and go to class, versus, okay, I can sleep late and go to my class online. Like, sometimes you have to make sacrifices. And I think because of COVID specifically, people saw the ease and primarily the ease of being able to roll out of bed, get on their computer, and do their classes. That's great, but that was a need. That was us being reactive to a moment in our time, COVID. So I think now, kind of refocusing the view on online classes, like, it's not a necessity. It is there for those who need it and who will like it and who can do it, but it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Yeah. And also, honestly, we kind of also see it in the opposite way. Like, I've had a lot of clients that are younger, went through maybe high school during COVID, and had fully online everything, but they're still struggling. And I like to introduce less technology-based approches in my sessions like that.
Yes.
So like, taking notes with
We call
pen
that
and paper.
blended learning.
Like
Blended learning is research proven. It is used in K-12, it's used in higher ed, but I don't think everyone knows about it. Because even if you are teaching an online class, you can still give elements that are not 100% online, right? Yeah. Or even if you're taking a in-person class in a brick and mortar, you don't have to always do things paper-based. You can give some blended things to help that student survive in both elements of the course.
Yeah. And like I tell students all the time, like my phone and my laptop are like my life. Especially actually, like I have everything.
And we're millennials, right?
Exactly.
Like we're millennials. Like I was just telling one of the student workers, like Gen Z, no shade to y'all, but sometimes y'all don't do things as tech savvy as millennials. But I think because we've had the blended learning, right? We've had the world without stuff, and then we've had the world with it. And so we see both sides, and we can kind of make connections a little bit easier versus other generations.
And like I've even seen like one thing I've noticed that I could not possibly do that I've seen from like younger students is like they take notes fully on computer.
Oh no, I need paper and pen. I hate paper and pen. I hate paper. My handwriting is trash because I use my computer so much. But for like meetings, notes, I need to be able to write it out just to make it click in my mind, honestly.
Yeah, and like I've tried that myself, but I'm like I don't feel like I'm grasping whatever I type in.
Yeah, correct.
Compared to me actually taking the time to write it out.
And then imagine somebody that's like pecking. So like you're pecking this sentence out and you missed whatever else the person just said. Yeah. So like how is that effective for you?
Exactly. I feel like it's been like for me especially like so I'm younger than both of y'all. So
you gotta just throw that out there.
Even for me, it's hard to listen to what a professor is saying while trying to type my notes, or even while I'm studying. I'm one of the people like I associate when I'm writing with what I'm listening to sometimes. So like if I'm writing and listening to music, I go take my test and I'm like, okay, I was listening to like a song.
I'm the same exact way. I think so. You asked earlier something that I used to help me be successful my first semester in college. Everything I wrote down, it was written down. Number one, even though I had a laptop, I still wrote everything down in my notebooks, and I listened to music every single time I studied. It could have just been I love Beyonce. It could have been Beyonce. It could have been whoever at that time. It could have just been smooth jazz. But that definitely helped me help it stick in my brain. So I'm seeing this. And like you just said, I'm making connections. Like, I was listening to Beyonce at that time. Oh, I remember that biology term. Like making those connections in my mind definitely helped me a little bit.
Like just the amount of time that it saved me on a test. I get stuck on a question. I'm like, I was listening to that song.
Exactly. So you found your own, technique to help yourself in your class.
Yeah, it's almost like white noise. It's just something that fills that space, so you're not like focusing on like how
35 different things. Your mind's going 35 miles per hour. So
exactly. So that first year of college for you, what were some resources that you either learned about or that you knew about and utilized that you don't think students now really think to reach out to?
I think the top two are your professor and an advisor. I didn't really lean on those because I'm pretty self-sufficient. I am the kind of person where if I can't find something in the store, I'm gonna try my hardest to look for whatever I'm looking for if I ask somebody for help. That's just me for whatever reason. So I'm the same way now. Before I ask somebody a question, I'll Google it, try to figure out the answer as best as I can before I go to somebody to ask that question. So I didn't really necessarily lean on them, but whenever I needed them, they were there, right? Advisors should be your number one point of contact. So here at BRCC, we have college navigators. They should be your first point of contact for all things BRCC. And then don't be afraid to contact your professor. Oftentimes, I get emails, because I am over digital learning, where someone's saying, hey, my professor has not posted my Canvas course. Yeah, I'm sure they haven't, but have you emailed them? Like, don't be afraid. They're not going to bite your head off. Email them. If not, they have other supports within that division or that college to support you. So the department head, the dean, understanding not necessarily the structure of the college, but knowing who to go to for what is also a good tip. Go onto the website, seeing the different departments, what they support in, if you need accommodations, accessing the counseling and accessibility services department. If you need books, knowing what a bookstore is, like just small things like that will help you be successful because you're no longer stressing about, well, how can I get this done? Okay, I have test read aloud accommodations. I don't need to contact counseling for that support. So like understanding what departments we have and understanding the support that's provided on campus.
Right. So as a digital literacy technician, one of our jobs is to help people like get integrate into the semester. So our biggest influx of clients would be at the beginning of the semester, and I can't even count them. Give me a bunch of hands. I can't count it. Like how many people?
Oh, give it all your hands. Our hands.
How many people come in and just and the simplest is email your professor.
Correct.
Because I can't if someone's asking me this assignment is locked, I cannot unlock it for you.
Yeah. And even though I have admin access to campus, I shouldn't do that. That's not my course. You need to contact, if not the professor, department head, dean. That should be your normal kind of transition of contact.
And then most of them don't even know the name of the professor.
They don't.
So I'm like, who's your professor? I don't know. Let's look at my syllabus and find out.
Or go to Lola.
Right.
And look at your course schedule to see who that person is. They don't even do that simple stuff. Just understanding what is in front of you that you actually have access to, I think will solve half the problems that we encounter the first couple of weeks of school.
I think also, and this is a less tangible solution, but I think also just having patience not only with yourself, but also with your professors. Everyone's kind of having, to figure things out.
Because oftentimes professors are hired 2 days before school starts. So they don't even realize they have to go in campus to unlock that course. They think it's automatic. Sometimes they have to go in and publish it before it's seen by the students. So giving grace, I'm a preacher of that. You always have to give grace. And again, if you don't know X, reach out to the professor, reach out to your advisor, because they know who to then go to. That you may not know who, from your side, who to go to. So yeah.
Yeah, working at the center has given me access to talking to a lot of professors, and the amount of times I've heard they just put me in this online class yesterday.
Legit. It's no lie. You will literally when I was adjunct, I got hired. I graduated my doctorate December 2020, middle of COVID. I think I had gotten hired, had an interview before I graduated, so November 2020. I got offered the adjunct position maybe December 20th, and I started teaching January, let's say 5th or 6th. But even then, that was Christmas, so I didn't have access to nothing until after everybody came back from winter break. I didn't have a login, didn't have an email, didn't have campus access. I couldn't do nothing until they actually got back on campus, gave me my access. So I think maybe 2 days before school started, I actually had access to stuff. So really, truly giving people grace. And then again, asking. No one's I know for me, I still teach a class here. I try to respond to all my emails within 24 hours, of course. I know that's unrealistic for some people, but I do try to be that support for my students, because I know that sometimes they're frustrated, or they don't know who to go to, or they don't know, what the question is they're trying to ask. So just trying to be supportive from a professor standpoint as well. Customer service to me is in all parts, even if you're not in actual retail. To me, customer service is still in education. It's in all parts. If you're a doctor, you should still have good bedside manner. All of that is, to me, together. Yeah.
Did you have a professor or anyone else on the faculty when you were in college that you think really helped you out, especially the first semester, that first year, or maybe even inspired how you approach things now?
Honestly, no, which is, not necessarily sad to say, because not everybody has to have a professor as a mentor, right? Or an advisor as a mentor. Honestly, no. If I had to say someone or someone that, within my department, maybe it wasn't my first or second year, maybe my third year of college, once I got into the actual education program, all of my education professors were amazing. They really poured into us things that we should do when we're a teacher, things that we should look out for, things like that. So not necessarily a mentor, but I really took their nuggets of wisdom and I, embodied it for my own philosophy.
Yeah. What kind of nuggets did you take?
Put me on the spot.
Sorry.
Lord, Derek. Honestly, just listening to your students and going with your gut. I think oftentimes teachers, and I think we've all had teachers like this, sometimes you meet a teacher that is a content expert, but they are a horrible teacher. And I think sometimes people don't realize that's two different things. Content experts, you can be a genius in, let's say, glasses, right? You know all things about glasses, when it was created, who created it, how to do whatever. But that does not mean you know how to swallow it, digest it, spit it back out to make someone else understand what you're talking about. So that's kind of like two different worlds. So I think that was the biggest thing. Yeah, we're content experts in English or whatever your field was, but understanding how to make it bite-sized and approachable for a fifth grader in your classroom that may be taking care of his little brother because his mom works 3 jobs or whatever the case may be, making it all approachable for that student that's in front of you. So yeah.
And you say you got a lot of really meaningful connections once you finally got into your education department, like once you got connected with those professors in that field. How did you make those connections, and like outside of just like taking classes with those professors, how did you foster those relationships academically?
So I was the only Black girl in my entire education class, if you want to say class. At Southeastern, excuse me, we have the best education program in the state. Just want to say that. But most teachers who are successful teachers go through Southeastern. And within the education department, you have different umbrellas. So you have SPED, so that's special education. You have elementary education, 1 through 5. You have pre-K education, so like early childhood, that's pre-K to I think 2nd grade. Then you have middle school, then you have high school. My major was middle school education. I did 4th through 8th grade English and social studies. So it was like maybe 25 of us in the whole like cohort of middle school teachers who wanted to be middle school teachers. And I was the only Black person, only Black girl. So off top, it was kind of like, oof, I'm in a space that is not necessarily for me. I felt comfortable the entire time. They were all welcoming and supportive. But being that quote unquote all person out can kind of mess with your head, excuse me. So stepping back and welcoming the support that I got from my classmates, because we had potlucks. We went out to do like the little painting with a twist stuff. We really made connections amongst our cohort that really helped me if I had any questions regarding like field experiences, observations, whatever the case may be. I was able to shoot a text. I'm still friends with probably half of them on Facebook still. So not necessarily my professors, but my classmates. We really created like a little small family for the 2 years that we were in together, the last 2 years of our college experience.
I love that.
That's great. So I find, especially post-COVID, people have a very tough time with like finding their group. And like, I guess now the current solution is as soon as a class starts,
create a
group me. But I think that's something that's probably missing a little bit is like, we do offer study rooms here, but I think that's something that's missing, like students coming in after class and kind of like debriefing what happened and like maybe getting together for a study group or even just for a homework assignment.
Honestly, that third space, they call it the third space. The third space is missing in general, like outside of school, in your personal life, right? Like no one has that third space for them to go to outside of work and home to meet other people. Like it's no other place for us to go and just hang out, just meet people that may have the same likes and dislikes as you, etc. So like I want the center to be that third place for our students. Like when outside of the class, they can come here, either get in a study pod, study by themselves, get tutoring, have a study group session going on, have workshop sessions. I want to have that starting. I've already told Mr. Vasquez about that. So I want us to start having things here to serve as like a third space or a third spot for our students. So then if they do feel like they're not in the group meet, or maybe they just didn't get invited to the group meet, right? I don't want them to not feel like they have no support. Like they can come here and get a study group or just sit and ask a question or whatever the case may be. So like having this space be a third space for them to come outside of home and work.
Kind of like adjacent to like how like, you used to see people like after school they go to a coffee shop.
Yeah, and just like chill and, study or whatever. Like having this be a space. And without the coffee, no messes. But, of course, yes, definitely.
Well, it's even tougher, especially now that we're, pretty recently post-COVID. Like there's so much that's still online and not in person. I mean, like, as we talked about before, like, there's so many classes that it's supposed to be in person, gets switched online last second.
Correct.
And so, like...
Because it's cheaper.
Exactly. And it's so hard so it makes that job even more difficult for us, especially for you, leading us, creating an in-person space and getting people to, like, come on campus.
Or even figuring out, like, innovative ways to give them a third space online.
Right.
So, like, maybe creating a group study space for them to come in and all physical science people come on this random Thursday at 3 o'clock and get questions answered or talk to each other or network or whatever. Yeah. It's like figuring out innovative ways, out-the-box ways to support the people who are online. Yeah. So, yeah.
And when it comes to first year students, what are some of the biggest struggles that you see with the students that come into the center?
For non-traditional or traditional either?
Yeah.
It's a lot. To me, starting college is like literally taking a box of, Cheerios and pouring it all out. and then telling somebody to stack them up on top of each other, right? It could be overwhelming. Like you have all this stuff in front of you and now you gotta sit here and figure it all out by yourself. So I think just ensuring the challenges normally are what do I do? I have the BRCC app on my phone. And baby, that app, I may delete it just because I empathize for them because I know I remember the frustration being a first year college student or whatever the case may be, between financial aid and maybe not having the money to purchase your books or just not being able to maneuver a new space.
Or even scheduling classes.
Correct. Or even knowing how to schedule their classes,
what
right?
Class
Or simple things like, or knowing like their pathway for their degree. Like just things like that you would assume people should know or they should want to at least figure out by themselves, but they don't really realize who to talk to about it if they can't figure it out by themselves. So I think that's the biggest challenge, honestly, for non-traditional and traditional students, the maneuvering this new space that can be kind of overwhelming and cumbersome for them and figuring out the steps. Because I think sometimes people just want to do it all at one time, but you have to really say, okay, I'm a new student. All right, first step, how do I get into Lola? To me, that's the first step in general. Okay, after that, how do I get in my class? Like figuring out what your steps are versus trying to do everything at the same time.
Yeah, it's like we see non-traditional students and it's like their problem is, okay, I haven't been in a classroom in so long, so I'm doing this on my own. I don't know who to talk to. And then on the other end, you see traditional students like, okay, I've been through school. I show up to school.
Yeah.
Someone tells me what I need to do, where I need to go,
yeah.
blah, blah. Now what do I do now?
Yeah. And on top of that, you are also combating potentially people who have been sheltered their entire K-12 life, right? They went to school, they survived, they did great, but they may not have that quote unquote street sense to help them survive and figure things out on their own without somebody telling them all at every moment what to do.
I think because a lot of a big situation we have is like people will download the Canvas app, and then
and do everything from there.
Right.
No,
and even to make it worse is like before the classes start, the semester eventually, your Canvas will get flooded with notifications, and the students will come like, I don't know what any of this means.
Correct.
And especially for students who like may have been sheltered, like for myself, my mom and my dad were really big helping me with schoolwork. When I got to college, I got all these.
It was all you.
I don't know what none of these mean.
Yeah.
So that I have a lot of students or like clients that come in and they ask for that. They're like, what it like. And like it's usually not that bad. They just need to layer
organize, like just structured. Like, okay, all these things are in front of me. What do I need to tackle first? All things are not as important as something else. And then even just something as simple as, hey baby, put that phone down, get a Chromebook.
Correct.
IT will give it to you, and let's go from there.
Because get off the phone, get your Chromebook. On your phone, it'll have notifications. On your Chromebook, it's gonna be laid out in modules.
Yes, and it's more digestible versus like that. I hate texts. Oh my God. When I tell y'all I hate text, and it's crazy, I am a millennial. You would think I love text. I hate text. The beeping noise like gives me anxiety. I've literally turned off my text message notification sounds. I don't want to hear it. That's overwhelming for me. So I can only imagine being a new student and looking at Canvas and seeing all these things come in. I'll just throw my phone on the floor and not even worry about it. And be like, oh well, I get whatever grade I get. That is overwhelming. So like giving them, I think one thing I do want to give, not necessarily feedback, but start doing during our freshman orientation and all of our new student things that we do in the summertime, the tours and things like that. When they come here, not only tour the center, but have a small section talking about Canvas and Lola. Like, even though that's not our forte, but we get so many questions the first week of school.
It's kind of become what we do now.
Correct. Right. And then we're still digital learning. So Canvas is kind of a part of our umbrella as well. But like just having like a small little 5-minute session about, okay, here's Canvas, here's how to get to it, here's how to maneuver it, whatever, so that they're not feeling so overwhelmed. And how to use it, how to access it, not using your phone, use an actual computer or a desktop computer.
Okay, so it's time for a segment that we like to call the final bell. We have one last question for you before we wrap things up.
So Dr. Sahara, what is the biggest piece of advice you would give yourself before your first year of college?
I would say have grace. I want to get that tattoo somewhere on me. Because I just, to me, you need to always give yourself grace, give others grace. So I would tell myself to have grace with myself and don't be so hard if it doesn't work out as you think it should or as you forecasted, because I am a planner 100%. I know I was going to marry my husband the first probably week I met him. already planned my wedding and all that kind of stuff. So like really giving myself grace around if this major doesn't work out, because my first major was not education. It was special education. It was still education, but I really wanted to be a pediatrician. I hate science. What a passion. Like, no lie, I cannot stand science. And I'm not a big math fan either. So like clearly math and science is very important to be a successful pediatrician. Or I want to be a vet because I love animals as well. But like I kind of like, you know, I wasn't hard on myself, but it's like, so how are you gonna choose education? That's like kind of like a cop out. So like giving yourself grace of things work out. Even though I'm not a pediatrician or a vet, I'm still a doctor. Like I still worked my way through 13 years, which is not that much time. I'm only 35. I've accomplished so much in my tenure as being a professional. So I wish I could tell 18-year-old Sahara, like, girl, you will not just be a teacher. You're gonna do so much more outside of what you think you're gonna do. So just giving myself grace.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving our podcast a listen. We're excited to bring you more content. You can check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. Thanks again. This has been In Session with Miles and Derek.